Hello, welcome to Taxpayer Alert. I'm Al Segalla. I'll be your moderator. I'm also president of the Calaveras County Taxpayer Association, which you're welcome to join. You'll see our website, and you can join from our website. Now, with that commercial aside, we have another exciting session this evening with our chairman of the Board of Supervisors, Gary Toffanelli. Gary's got quite a bit of experience on the board, and he's gone through some rough times and come across really well. And Gary, welcome. And
thank you, Al. Thanks for having me on.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background. I think you're in the steel business. Is that correct?
I'm in the steel business. I've been in the steel business since I was 17 years old. I've owned my company that I have now for close to 28, 29 years. So I've, when it comes to steel industry, I've pretty much from ground up, but I've done most everything you can do in the steel industry. Lived here in this county for close to 30 years, from Amador County. Have 2 kids, 2 sons, and I have 7 grandchildren.
Oh, wow.
One son, my oldest son, lives in Hawaii, and have 4 grandchildren there. And then my youngest son works for me in the company, and I have 3 grandchildren from him.
Wow, so, that's quite something. There's going to be a lot of Toffanellis around.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, if there was daughters, it may not be the case.
Yeah, I have 2 sons, but no, I do have 2 granddaughters that live here in the county. So.
That's good. You seem to enjoy yourself on the Board of Supervisors, and you're highly respected.
Oh, thank you.
What are some of the looking back, what are some of the best things you remember, and what are some of the challenges that you might think of?
Well, that's kind of a
hard question.
No, it's not a hard question at all. This is my second term. The first term I have in between. There was a term in between. But if you go back to my first term, it was during the recession. When I took office in 2009, it was the very beginning of it.
That's a rough time.
Very rough time as far as budget issues went. We continually, over the 4 years that I was there, continued to cut every year 10% out of the budget. And when I got to the 4th year and we got to that point, you're talking 40% out of a budget that started up here, and now you're almost at 50% of what you started with before I came on the board. So there really wasn't a whole lot of exciting times going on that time. There was a lot of issues that had to do with the budget itself and what we were having to do, contracting, in order to go forward. But it's like anything else. Like I said, I've owned my business for close to 30 years, and the construction industry goes up and down. So I've seen a lot of it. I've had to deal with it in my business. I went through the recession. I didn't file bankruptcy. I worked through it. We did whatever we needed to do to go forward, and I think that's what we were doing back at that time. We had some issues right out of the gate. Jumped into the golf course issue, Trinitas.
Yeah.
That dragged on for almost 2 years.
They went bankrupt, didn't they?
I can't tell you what they went. I know that we were busy defending a lawsuit that they had filed, a couple of lawsuits against the county. But, so controversy to me at the government level and the position that I'm in is nothing new. I faced it in the past and jumped right into the fire pan into this one too, and with the cannabis issues that was going on, still going on right now, although it's kind of died down some. So, there's times when you have achievements. Some of the things that I look back on was there was ARA funds that Obama made available, and our public works director was very astute on not only getting the funds due at Calaveras at that time, but getting other counties money that was allotted to them too, because we had shovel-ready projects ready to go, and the whole thing for that money was you needed to show you had shovel-ready projects. Yeah. So I was able to get a number of roads in my district, and the other supervisors too, paved that otherwise we would not have got fixed or paved at that time. So that was real exciting. That was something to work on. I was involved in COG, and that time was going on just the beginning of the Wagon Trail project with improving Highway 4.
The bypass,
from Copper up to Angels Camp, and getting that off the ground through COG. COG, I'm a very strong COG supporter. I've been on it for 2 years during this stint as a supervisor, and I was on it for 3 years prior. And I feel it is very good mechanism to bring state and federal dollars into our county for roads and bridges and that type of thing, as long as you have somebody that's in the right place in public works that can deliver projects. And that's the key to it, because they're going to keep giving you money if you show you're using the money and delivering projects.
Well, there was a state project. It was the bypass to Angels Camp that I understand was very successful.
Yes.
And I think COG had a...
COG was involved. That was a COG project, yes.
Yeah.
And,
so
that's been several years ago. At that time, we were actually... it was what they called the Tri-County Agreement. We had agreement with Amador, Alpine, and Calaveras, and we were putting all those monies together from those COGs into complete projects in each one of those counties in order to gain more money to complete larger projects.
Right.
Since then, that agreement has gone by the wayside. So, but that was part of that at that time. Yeah.
There seems to be I may be wrong, but there seems to be a trend that local governments and state governments too are becoming increasingly dependent upon grants for infrastructure from the federal government.
It is the system that has been set up and in place, including state funds and federal funds.
Yeah.
That is. You have to deal with what the cards you're given.
Right.
And I know people look on grants as not being a good thing. Some people look at them as being a good thing. I think it was an answer to, like any other law or any other thing that evolves, an answer to funds being misspent. And the federal government and the state government wanted more control over it. And the grant procedures have evolved also, as far as how it used to be. You get a grant and you weren't really under a microscope in how those funds are being spent, although you had to report.
Right.
Now they're evolved to, you have to show how every dollar was spent and account for it, which is really a good thing, because they're tax dollars,
right.
They're public funds, and the public has the right to know that they're being spent in the manner they're supposed to be spent. But COG funds is a little bit different. They are not grants. Those are dollars earmarked when you buy gasoline and other things that have to do with roads. Those are earmarked for the COGs through federal and state, and so they're not grant money. But again, those are monies that you have to show that you can expend those funds, and not only expend them but deliver a project that every couple years, COG goes out for a call for projects.
Right.
And at that time, the county or the city or other people can come to the COG board and ask for their project to be considered. And then we go after funding once the board decides which projects to go for. But the last few years, Calaveras County hasn't been spending their money. And I'm really excited. You talk about things that I'm excited about. I'm really excited that we have hired a new public works director, Josh. And he is a civil engineer and a traffic engineer. And he has a history from where the county, Nevada County, where he came from, of actually delivering projects. So he is well tuned on how to do it, how to get it accomplished, and not only spend those funds, but go after other funds that are available. So I'm really excited to give him a chance. He's only been here for a couple weeks.
Well, we won't pick on him yet.
Yeah, well, and one of the things he asked me about, and I told him specifically, he said, "What about your district?" And I gave him some of the things in my district, but I was adamant to him that I'm more looking at, and I'm more of a guy that looks at the county as a whole. I'm interested in Calaveras County, and COG is that avenue to get the local funds and state and federal funds to complete projects and improve our roadways.
Do you think the county or any government should have a responsibility to anticipate future needs in the way of infrastructure and put money aside for that, so that they'll have a fund that they can draw upon without having to borrow or get grants? Do you think there, in somewhere in that mix, there's that responsibility?
I agree with you, but you have to get to a point where the funds that are available or coming in, that you can put money aside. Right now, we are looking to, and we've opened program up, and I'm not sure if you're aware of it. I'm trying to think of it off the top of my head right now, that the board had met with Rebecca Callan over unfunded liability and opened up a program where we are putting money into address that unfunded at the time when it comes. And we're looking at it coming.
That's a CalPERS.
CalPERS, unfunded liability with CalPERS retirement. California Government Employees Retirement System.
Boy, that could be a show all on itself.
It could be a show all by itself. But that's a major issue to us, and we're addressing that issue. This board has taken on moving forward with putting funds aside and putting them in a secure funding source that is not really
to reduce the unfunded liability.
Doesn't have a great risk in it. It's more of a safe funding mechanism to invest our funds in. So we are addressing that, not necessarily roads at the time, but
taxpayers love you.
So
okay. Now, one of the important things that you suggested is the TOT. Okay, what are your thoughts on the TOT?
Well, TOT, I guess, is being spoken about by all the candidates. Of course, it's an election year, and everybody is out there. The words are out there, and my name actually is on the ballot as a proponent for the statement for proponents for the TOT, along with Kathy Galino, our Economic Development Department Director, and the Sheriff, Rick DiBasilio. And, I've traveled a lot. I've traveled quite a bit extensively, not only in the states here, what they call the contiguous states, but I've been to Hawaii many times. Obviously, my son is there, we 6%, which what we charge now is probably the lowest I've ever seen or paid.
And that was changed to 12.
Hawaii, I think, is 20%.
And we changed that to 12. Is that correct?
Well, we're looking to have the people vote in Calaveras to raise it to 12%.
Okay.
Correct. Our neighboring counties are in that neighborhood. We're in Tuolumne and Amador, and it's been around for a number of years. I think it's like 18 or 19 years ago that it was brought forward, and the people of California agreed to it on a ballot measure, and it went forward. It for historically up until this year, people say it goes into the general fund, but the Board of Supervisors has never absorbed that into the general fund. We've always given it a third to the Visitors Bureau, a third to the Public Works, and a third to the Sheriff's Office. And that was because we felt those three departments were ones that had a lot of interaction with tourists when they came here. Obviously, the Visitors Bureau marketing Calaveras County to get them here. Public Works because of roads, them traveling over our roads, and the Sheriff's Office to deal with a number of issues that come up, whether it be any type of illegal activity or cars or wrecks or what have you. So historically, that's what it was done, and it was always done. It was never any of it ever absorbed into the general fund.
I understand that presently there's proposals for expanding that into other areas.
Well, we did this year. This board had heard, and there was rumbling when I was on the board before about the fire districts. And the fire districts were saying that they were dealing with a lot of emergency services that had to do with people from outside of the county coming here for whatever reason, staying here in hotels just to go visit Ironstone during a concert series, or even for the weekend for Murphy's or whatever at the lakes, what have you. So this year the board decided to divvy the tax up to the Visitors Bureau, to the Sheriff's Office, Public Works, and the Fire Department.
So there's four.
So there's four that are receiving it this year. In order to bring the levels up to what the Visitors Bureau and the Sheriff's Office and Public Works, to absorb that quarter, we looked at raising to 12%, and everybody would get a sizable increase in what they're getting now. And I think Calaveras would benefit it in moving forward by doing that, and it would benefit the four departments that we're looking to allocate those funds to. But it is not. It has never been absorbed into the general fund. Which is, some people are saying that we're trying to raise it so we can bring money into the general fund to cover a deficit, and we can get into that later. But as far as budget goes, but that's not the case. The case is to bring these departments up and make them whole for what they're expending for whatever reason, emergency services, marketing, road repairs because of the travel across the roads in the county, or the fire department for rescue services, medical services, what have you.
I understand that the TOT at the 6% rate doubled for some reason. The income went up dramatically, and I'm not sure exactly why.
It didn't double, but it went up quite a bit because we struck a deal with Airbnb.
Oh.
And so when people come here and rent the houses out, or apartments or whatever it is that's up for Airbnb, they are now paying that TOT tax.
That explains that.
Yeah.
Well, with all this extra money coming in, maybe you don't have to raise the TOT.
I'd have to disagree with you, because when it comes to what expenditures are versus what's coming in, it's not even. Okay. It's not. Yeah. So us county residents are paying that difference. So
the taxpayer is the visitor that comes in, and they pay it as part of their bill for their hotel they're staying at, and almost like a sales tax, I think. Isn't it?
Well, I like I said, travel. I stayed in many hotels that have a lot higher rate than even the 12%, and you just pay it. You just, when the hotel room bill comes, you pay it. You don't give it a second thought. I don't. That's part of what it is.
Okay.
So, I don't think it deters in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't deter me from traveling. It doesn't deter me from renting a hotel room when I'm going to go to wherever I'm going to go to. It's part of...
Now, you also don't get a chance to vote on how much you're going to be taxed.
That's true.
Okay, so it's easy to tax you if there's no consequences.
Well, that's true, but it's easy for me to say I'm not going there because the tax is too high, too.
It'd have to be pretty bad before that would happen, I think.
So,
Yeah. Anything else on the TOT that you think we should know?
Unless you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Well, the main question is the actual consequences. It seems like when it's fairly low, there's very little consequences. When it gets higher, there may be some economic consequences, but it takes a lot of work and study to try to find out what they are. You have to do surveys. You have to...
Well, we paid for a survey company to survey the TOT, and this is what they came back and said would work. So we did go through that route before we put this on the ballot.
Right.
Put on the ballot, so, yeah.
Well, that's cool. Next thing is budget.
Budget.
Yeah, we got $6.8 million, I think.
We have $6.8 million.
And you're in charge of spending all this money. So
not on my own. There's
you can't go to Hawaii.
Four other people involved in it.
You can't go to Hawaii with it.
Yeah, I can't go to Hawaii on it, no.
Okay, so looking at the budget, what do you see? What are some of your concerns with that?
Well, I had a lot of concerns, and when the first preliminary budget came out, and I had many conversations with Rebecca Callan and Tim, our CAO, Lutz, on my concerns. And if you go back and you look at preliminary budget when the final vote came, I polled the board because of my concerns and asked that if they wanted to at least have a budget presented to us with a 5% reduction in what was the preliminary budget at the time, because I had some concerns. And it was a balanced budget. People have to understand when you hear deficit, we're not the federal government or even the state government that can run on a deficit. We, by law, have to have a balanced budget. And what that means is for every dollar we spend, we have to have a dollar to spend it. Right. We can't go into debt. Right. We can't print money. Right. So we can't just do that. So even though you call it a deficit, and what they are calling a deficit is when you look at our expenditures of $70 million and what our income looks at $60 million, they're saying, well, there's a $10 million deficit. Well, when you break that down, you have funds for those, and some of the funds that are included in that above 70 million is when unlike my company, when I'm hiring people or looking to hire people, I don't have their salary for a full year set aside. Right. But the county, in the way they do their budget, and government agencies are done this way, when you have a number of jobs out there that you're looking to hire for, when budget comes around, you have to set that money aside for the whole salary year. Right. So there's about $2.8 million of that being set aside that we carried over from last year for jobs that are not filled. Right. So we have to carry that. So every day those jobs are unfilled during the budget year, however many of them it translates into be, you save that much money every day, because you don't have, if you hire somebody, that part's gone. You're not going to pay them that whole salary. If it's 3 or 4 months into the year, you've saved 3 or 4 months of salary. So we carried $2.8 million over, and we continued to carry that into this year, so we would have those jobs funded. When we were going back and talking about earlier, when I was on the board earlier, we cut those jobs the first year I was on, most of all those jobs, we weren't going to fill any more positions because we were in a recession, so we cut them.
Right.
And so we saved that money.
Right.
But as time went on, they still funded, they went back into funding positions that they wanted to hire. The other portion of that budget is that you look at $3.9 million of that is actually contingency funds because those funds are available to spend.
Right.
And you also look at what we're funding through teeter funds is about $2 million, a little over $2 million worth of teeter funds are funding one-time projects.
Right.
We're going to be taking down the old jail. We're going to be doing a lot of other one-time projects. And that's what teeter fund was set up to do. This is one of the first times that I've been on the board that we're using teeter funds, what they were earmarked for.
Right.
A lot of times in the past, that after I left, they were using teeter funds to fill the gap. They had what's being called a deficit, but they would take and use teeter funds to have a balanced budget.
Right.
We are not doing that. We did not do that last year, and we're not doing that this year. We're using teeter funds for actually what they're used for, and that's the capital improvement projects,
Right.
Which is a good thing.
Like roof repair.
And roof repair, which was on the agenda the other day, which I had somewhat of an issue with because we were being asked to prove something.
You didn't know how much.
Yeah, and you had a contractor look at it. Do you have an estimate? And the roof repairs is part of that,
right.
Our budget this year. So if you want to tear all that down, talking to Rebecca Callan, there may be a couple of $1 million that we going forward into next year may have to look at funding some way, or if Leslie does the rolls and we have an increase in property taxes, it should cover some of that.
Yeah.
So after going through that and cutting to 5%, I feel very good about our budget. I really do. And moving forward, going to a point where we are spending our money at the level that we are bringing money in, and using the funds that are set up for capital improvements, certificates of participation, teeter fund, for the things that they're supposed to be used for, and we're functioning as a county on our the general fund dollars that we're experiencing is bringing in. And you got to remember when we do a budget and it's presented to the board, that $60 million that you see there is a projected,
right.
a very conservative projection of income. It's not $60 million sitting there already,
right.
that we got last year. This is a forecast, is money coming in.
So you basically have good news for the taxpayer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's good news.
So anyway, I feel very good about the budget. Rebecca feels, I had a conversation just not too long ago with her. She feels very good about the budget also. So.
Well, we've got about a minute left.
Oh.
We could talk about board rules or the COG.
Well, I spoke a little bit about COG, and I tell you, I'm a big proponent again of COG. I really think COG working with Public Works and expending those funds, you'll see a tremendous amount of improvements in our road system in our county. Not just, we're not talking highways, we're talking about our roads in county. I want to touch real quick on something that people in San Andreas.
30 seconds.
I was able to get with Caltrans and our Public Works and COG, met with Caltrans, and if you notice, we've moved the 30-mile-an-hour and 40-mile-an-hour signs back. They had moved them in on their own, and now we've got them back out, and they're working with us. I'm through COG and Public Works, I'm very happy that we are getting a relationship with Caltrans and going forward. So
thank you for being our guest, Gary. We covered a lot. We just scratched the surface. We're going to have to have him back. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And thank you for joining our program. See you next time.